Hello, nerds! Thank you for joining me here on Nerd News Clips. This is the second channel. This is the place for all of the short form content as well as the individual sections and just generally speaking smaller things. If you are into the longer form content, youtube.com/generallynerdy is the place to go see that. With that out of the way, let's get into this. All right, let's get into music news, shall we? So in the music news, we have one follow-up to take care of, and that is Rage Against the Machine has canceled their North American tour. Previously, we talked about how Zach De La Rocha had hurt himself on stage, and that kind of put a little bit of a damper into their ability to perform, in that Zach had to be carried on stage and off in a chair by stagehands, I would presume. Because he was unable to move very well. He hurt his Achilles tendon. About 8% of it remains attached currently, if you want to believe the reports. So that is why they had to cancel the next round of tour dates, because he needs more time to heal. So presumably they will re-announce new tour dates, and I was unable to find any information on whether or not refunds would be issued for the dates that were just canceled, or if you just have to hold on to your ticket and hope they announce dates in your city again, which they very likely will. But as it stands right now, that's all we know, is that the next round of tour dates have been canceled so that Zach De La Rocha can mend his torn Achilles tendon. Oof, that's rough, man. So from there, let's actually get into the That Just Happened section of music, and the things that happened this week as far as I have digested. We have a new record from Slipknot. It is called The End so far. We have 2 live shows that I was able to attend. So we're going to, let's discuss these things ever so briefly. As far as the new Slipknot record, this is on par with where they've been going with their career so far. And there's actually a couple of curveballs thrown in there, which is pretty awesome. That's my favorite example of Slipknot, is when they are able to just kind of do the really heavy, really brutal stuff, but then you get a song like Adderall that really is none of the above. It's just a very atmospheric and very mellow tune, which you don't necessarily think the word mellow when you think Slipknot, which is why it was kind of a breath of fresh air. I feel like that song in particular, though, not speaking to other instances of this on previous records, but specifically Adderall on the new Slipknot record, it seems like they wanted to do the thing that they've done previously. And I just feel like, I don't know, it seems like their heart wasn't really in it as much this time as it normally is. So that was a little disconcerting, but that's really my only negative comment about this record, is that one song, and even that is still a pretty dang good song. I still dig it. So it's definitely worth a listen. Go pick up the new Slipknot. Again, The End So Far is the name of the record. It's worth a listen. And then the 2 concerts that I went to. The first one was Killswitch Engage, Lamb of God, who was it? Baroness, and Suicide Silence. Unfortunately, I did not get to see the Suicide Silence portion of the show because I don't know what the hell was going on with traffic, but I allotted an extra half an hour than I actually needed, and it took us another half an hour beyond that to get to the venue. So yeah, my apologies for not having seen the entire show, but we walked in about 30 seconds into the first Baroness track, or song rather, and it was a hell of a time. I mean, my voice is still gone, kind of. You hopefully can hear that. But yeah, it was an incredible show. I haven't seen Killswitch Engage with that much energy in a long time, and I catch them fairly regularly. I honestly haven't seen Baroness since before they got the new lead guitar player, the female lead guitar player. And that was a hell of a performance from those guys as well. That was a lot more than I was expecting, honestly. Last time I saw them was in a much smaller venue and they kind of tore it down, but this time it was a giant venue and they still tore it down. So that speaks volumes about a band's ability to control a crowd when there was a pit for every song. I believe the entire night. I would be surprised if there wasn't a pit for the entirety of Suicide Silence set as well, but for every song that I was there for, there was pit going on. And honestly, there was even a pit between Killswitch Engage and Lamb of God sets because the house music was just kind of, that was the mood of the night. So Killswitch Engage set was, again, phenomenal. There were a couple of weird moments there. It's always kind of interesting for me to see which songs they choose to transport over, I guess is a way to say, from the Howard Jones records into this new invigorated Jesse Leach. It seems that they just lean really hard on the more overt, gaudy kind of lyrics. So Rose of Sharon was one. When Darkness Falls, oh my God, they played my theme song, which hearing Jesse sing those lyrics still gives me a little bit of a kind of double take, like that doesn't sound exactly the way I'm expecting it to, though he does a fair Howard Jones impersonation for a couple of those Howard Jones written songs. And then to end the set, they finished with The Signal Fire, which was like, without Howard, this is a song that has two vocalists. The recording is two vocalists, the video is two vocalists. You just did a giant tour where you had Howard's band opening for you, so you could do it live with two vocalists, and now you're doing it live with just the one vocalist. I loved every second of this set. And so keep that in mind when I'm about to say what I'm about to say, but absolutely every second of this set, I 100% loved. Some of those seconds I loved more than others. And the end of the set just was a little, I'm not going to say let me down, because nothing they did that night let me down, but it was a little different. We'll say it that way. Just because that's the final song you're going out on. You don't have the ability to do an encore because there is another band on after you. And you chose to do a song that should have two vocalists. Just was a little strange choice. And in that song, a lot of the power comes from the play between the two vocalists. Howard and Jesse play off of each other, so it elevates it that much more. And that didn't happen because it was only Jesse, so yeah, it just felt a little different. And then Lamb of God kind of destroyed the night. It was fantastic. They also, it's been a minute since I have seen Lamb of God, and they also played with a vigor that I have not seen from them in a while. So yeah, just getting back out on the road with these guys seems to be doing wonders now that pretty much all COVID restrictions have been lifted. And it was great to see Willie on stage. I kind of forgot that Willie might not be on this tour, but that was just the European leg of the Omens tour. So played a couple of tracks off of the new Omens record, played my absolute favorite song, Omerta, which was just the theatricality behind how they went into that song, just elevated it even more. Every time they play it live, it's dynamically different than the recording in all of the right ways. So that was no exception. I still had to be sitting because I still have the back injury. So I had to be sitting in the broken people section effectively. And which at the venue that we were at was kind of awesome because it's pretty great view from where we were sitting, but I could not jump in the pit, sadly, though I could watch the fact that there was a pit for the entire night, which was huge. Which the other show that I saw, the Meshuggah show, that didn't happen. And we'll get to that. But yeah, so Lamb of God, the Lamb of God Killswitch Engage tour that's going on right now, it was the final night for both Suicide Silence and Baroness. Going forward, it's going to be Animals as Leaders on a couple of those dates. And I honestly, there's so much shuffling going on. I can't remember exactly who is all on there, but yeah, it's worth your time. Even if you're just going for Killswitch and Lamb of God, they are playing with so much new vigor and new energy that it's 100% going to be a welcome departure from your regular day-to-day life. So And then the other show was Meshuggah. It was Torch, In Flames, and Meshuggah in that order. Torch is a band I didn't know much about beforehand. I did look them up when I bought the tickets, and this is kind of another rollover from COVID because I've had these tickets for over a year. So, because it just keeps getting rescheduled. So I looked up Torch when I first bought the tickets a little over a year ago, and it was pretty cool. Stoner metal, nothing exceptional necessarily, but worth a listen for sure. Can see how they got on this bill. And their performance was definitely left something to the imagination because, like, so just stoner metal in general is a little difficult to get a new audience into because a lot of stoner, and as ignorant as this may sound, a lot of stoner metal bands, not all, but most stoner metal bands sound the same. They're trying to be Electric Wizard, they're trying to be Sabbath off of the first 3 records, they're trying to be a very definitive, very rigid sound. So there's not a whole lot of room for play, and these guys didn't really take that to begin with. And then on top of it, the tone, the sounds that they were physically making from their speakers, from their amp cabinets, it sounded like they just needed a little tweaking on their EQs because they just kind of cranked everything. And for those that don't know, if you just turn all of your knobs as high as they'll go on your effects pedals, it usually sounds like garbage. There are occasionally players who can get away with that because they just kind of found a magic combination of pedals or what have you, but by and large, anyone who just cranks all of the knobs on their pedals has garbage tone, and that's really what this felt like, was that's what they did. So that one definitely left a lot to be desired, but In Flames did not disappoint. Oh man, these guys, this is my first time seeing them live, and I was definitely impressed with them live. I have been a bit of a fan of theirs for some time just through recordings and because they are so influential in the subgenres that I like a fair amount. So finally getting to see them live and actually experience their performance was awesome. They played a couple of they played a few older tracks. They played a couple other tracks off the new record, and they felt very well mixed. They had a very good song choice for this set. Just overall, In Flames killed it. And then Meshuggah hit stage, and the last time I saw Meshuggah was in a venue roughly half the size of this venue. And as of the first phrase on the first song, when they hit the stage at that show, face melt. This time, it was effectively the same thing, but because of the difference in venue and because of the difference in dynamics for the song that they decided to choose, it was, I'm gonna say slower, a little bit of a slower burn, but in the land of Meshuggah, that's not really a long time. Whereas it was the first note of the first phrase, the last show I went to, this most recent show, it was like the first note of the second phrase. But yeah, the whole set was just, oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, this is amazing. It was they closed the set with Bleed. I honestly have issues remembering a lot of the Meshuggah track names because I don't study the Meshuggah albums in the way that I do the Kill Switch and the Lamb of God and the things. But yeah, just absolutely amazing. They played a couple of tracks off of the Chaos Sphere as well, which is pretty freaking awesome. All of that being said, it was also the fact that In Flames was so amazing and Meshuggah was at the very minimum a great Meshuggah set. I mean, there were times where it's like, I don't understand how dudes who are well into their 50s, if not 60s, are still this brutal and this precise and still like menacing on stage. Like, all of that made up for the Torch issues, and that was a hell of a show. So again, if you have the ability to go watch Meshuggah and In Flames, then I highly suggest that, because wonderful. But the kind of comparing and contrasting the Killswitch show, or the Lamb of God show technically, and the Meshuggah show, Meshuggah, during Torch, there wasn't a whole lot of pitting at all, like almost no pits broke out during the Torch set. But even the In Flames set, like, was really more mellow than I was anticipating. Meshuggah had 3 pits, 3 rather sizable pits on the floor, which is saying something, because even at the Lamb of God show, it was always just 1 pit. It varied in size, but it was always just 1 pit. Whereas at the Meshuggah show, even the people who couldn't see the stage from where they were standing, the guys in the back of the general admission area, they were pitting. So, like, it's a different feeling as far as the atmosphere of the crowd, and it was just an interesting kind of juxtaposition. So that is what has happened over the last week as far as what I have experienced in the news. So let's get into new music. We have new music to talk about. First, actually, first thing in new music is this is going to be a stark contrast to last week's new music section, because last week's new music section is huge. This week's new music section, we have 3 songs. So yeah, that's what we got. Starting off the new music section is Serj has released a new single off of his Perplex Cities record, which is coming out October 21st. The name of this song is The Race. A lot more cinematic feel to this so far from what we're getting from Serj. It's not the best Serj stuff that I've heard, but honestly, that's still saying something, because even the worst Serj Tankian music that I've experienced, at least, is better than most. So definitely worth a listen on this, but just know this is not necessarily like a heavy or aggressive or in-your-face kind of tune. It feels a lot more cinematic. And next is an artist that we talk about from time to time, though it has been a moment. Colter Wall, country music extraordinary, well, Americana, I don't know. I feel like the country music term has been co-opted by people who really wouldn't be caught on stage with Colter Wall. So, yeah, Colter Wall has a new song. It's called Cypress Hills and the Big Country. I'm trying to figure out if he's putting out a new album or if this is just 2 songs that he's released. I didn't write down the name of the other song because I have yet to listen to it, but this one, the Cypress Hills song, is exactly what you're expecting out of a Colter Wall tune. Actually, there's 2 expectations when it comes to Colter Wall. One is it's either going to be him and his guitar, and that's the experience, or you have Colter with his band. This is the former, not the latter. This is just Colter and his guitar. There's some atmospherics, and there's definitely some layering there. So there's more than just him on the recording, but the expectation should be this first one and not the second one. But it's great. This is one of the greatest Americana, even though he's Canadian, one of the greatest Americana lyricists out there. Colter is something of a lyrical genius when it comes to telling a tale and evoking a mood and experience and all that. Yeah, just check out the new Colter Wall music. It's beautiful. Our next one comes from what sounds like is a new band, though it is not actually a new band. The name of this band is 96 Bitter Beings, which might sound familiar to you because they used to be called CKY, which, you know, Camp Kill Yourself. Bam Margera's little brother was the drummer. That's the band. They changed their name to 96 Bitter Beings after the song that they wrote as CKY called 96 Quite Bitter Beings, which is the one that everybody knows and was on Tony Hawk and so on and so forth. The name of this song is Fire Skyline. The record is called Synergy Restored, and it will be out November 4th. This is apparently the 2nd single that they've released from this record, though I did not have time to listen to the first single. This is, I mean, if you listened to that 96 Quite Bitter Beings song, then you have a fair expectation on this track. It is not quite as well performed in the recording. By that I mean the rock bass syndrome is great with this band. They definitely suffer from the rock bass syndrome, though I think part of that is the producer. Whoever produced this record just didn't know what to do with their bottom end, so it's really thin and kind of rests a lot in the mids and highs. So there's that, but also just like it feels like the palm mutes, it feels like a lot of the longer phrases, it feels like all of this just lacks the clarity that we got on that 96 Quite Bitter Beings song. So, and honestly, the earlier CKY stuff kind of felt a little more well executed, even if it wasn't quite as well produced. So that's kind of where this one sits. It's a weak recommend, but definitely worth a listen, especially if you dig the CKY stuff. Now let's talk about touring. We have a fair amount of stuff on the tour page, and honestly, a couple of these took me by surprise. So first up, didn't take me by surprise. We're talking again about the Misfits. We have another show. All right, so I did look into this a little bit further, and more recently, this whole we're never going to tour again, this is the last tour, that narrative that the Misfits has been putting out up until, again, fairly recently, is no longer the thing. Danzig's talking about how much fun he's having with the Misfits again. Jerry Only, I think I even saw an interview with him talking about how he would do the Misfits until he dies. A recent interview, because he said that previously as well. And then Doyle von Frankenstein, I feel like is just going to do whatever he's told because he's just there to look pretty most of the time anyway. And that's just my opinion, though. So they are playing New Year's Eve in Vegas. The opening acts, this one's pretty interesting, Tiger Army and the Circle Jerks. There is a link down in the description if you are looking for tickets. Again, it is in Las Vegas on New Year's, and also the early access password is down in the description as well, should that still apply by the time you're trying to go get these tickets. But I feel like this is going to be a really fun show. Just, even if it was just Tiger Army and the Misfits, I think that would be a hell of a show. So throwing in Circle Jerks because they're the Circle Jerks, yeah, absolutely, just makes it that much better. Moving right along, we have one that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on. Muse has announced that they're going on tour. They are going to be supported by Evanescence. The name of the tour is Will of the People, which is the name of the new Muse record, so it makes sense. Starting February 25th in 2023 in Chicago, Illinois, runs through April 20th in Salt Lake City, Utah. Yeah, go check out the websites because no early access tickets were on sale just yet, and I don't think there was any links anywhere that I could find outside of just going to the Muse website or the Evanescence website to get your tickets. And then we're going back to Colter Wall. Colter Wall is kind of doing a little bit of a tour to begin the year 2023. He has 5 dates scheduled so far. 3 of those 5 dates are in Texas. The other 2 dates are in Colorado. So if you want, there is a link down in the description for those, but so far, not an actual tour, just some dates, because it seems like he might actually be working on a new record, so we will keep tabs. Next one is Animals as Leaders. They are currently on tour in the States. We've talked about this previously. They just announced that there is going to be a European leg to this tour. It runs through January the 22nd. Again, that is in Europe. They are on tour right now, so sell tickets. You can find them on their website. And I think we have one more. Yes, one more is Depeche Mode, one of my favorite bands, honestly, of all time, and definitely from the 80s. March 23rd, Sacramento, California is going to kick off the new tour for Depeche Mode. It is the Momento Mori tour, which is the name of their new record, which we're going to get to in just a minute. And it runs through October 11th in Oslo, Norway. So this is a world tour. There are already a bunch of dates scheduled. It seems that they are not really touring a whole lot in the States on this first leg. So as more dates are announced, should there be a second and or third leg should there be a second or and third leg or something along those lines, words, we will be definitely keeping tabs on that. But right now, their dates in the States are fairly limited. That is all of our tours. Let's get into news. And we have such a bad news section for music this week because we have 3 pieces. 2 of them are deaths, and the third kind of revolves around a death in a way. So let's get into this. Coolio, the rapper who gave us Gangsta's Paradise, Fantastic Voyage, he was in a bunch of movies, actor, rapper, producer, probably on some of the acting stuff, but I don't believe he ever produced any music. Either way, the man has passed, and I honestly thought it was a joke when I first heard this. He was only 59 years old, and the heart attack, and it was really hard to find the actual report on what it was that took him. But the official word on why Coolio is no longer with us is he had a heart attack at 59, and that's what took him. So that is a heavy one. Oh, because that is like a lot of the music from my childhood, was listening to that early hip hop stuff, of which Coolio was kind of one of the central figures. So yeah, we're going to take a moment for Coolio. That's just, oof. And like I said, we have 2 deaths to talk about. The next one is Loretta Lynn, country star extraordinaire, kind of a kind of standard bearer for female vocal country. She's one of the biggest that came around in her time. She's definitely not the first, but she is one of the most positive and forward-thinking voices, I guess you could say. Just a solid man, and to see the reactions to the passing of Loretta Lynn, that is almost just as heartbreaking as the actual passing. Like, Jack White is in pieces. Oh man, he helped her record, I believe, the last 2 records that she put out on his Third Man label, and not just the country music world, but the music world is reeling from this. So let's take another moment for Loretta Lynn. And then our final piece of regular-ass news for the music section, like I said, kind of still is dealing with death. Momento Mori is a new record coming from Depeche Mode. This is the first new record that they are putting out post-death of Fletch, Andy Fletcher, their keyboard player, and original member of the band, of which there are 3, and now there are 2. The first time they are putting out new music, again, since the passing of Fletch, and I'm excited about this because it does mean they're going on tour. It also means we get new music, and I love Depeche Mode, and honestly, their last 2 records that they put out have been surprisingly good for men who are pushing close to 70. Just in general, for like synth pop and goth pop stuff that they are just kind of originators of. I'm super excited about this. There's more stuff to it. I gotta read. I'm sorry. Momento Mori. Oh, I did not get the release date. I apologize. I'll have to follow up in the next episode and talk about that because it's not in here. But again, they're going on tour starting January, and it's going to be a long-ass tour, so you should have an opportunity to see them live. That being said, let's do music suggestions for this episode. We're going to keep this train going with the Depeche Mode. We have Ultra is our recommendation for albums this week. Depeche Mode Ultra is the record that I heard the very first time I was aware of a band named Depeche Mode. Obviously, I had heard previous singles from them, but I was too young to, you know, understand what I was listening to and that kind of stuff. The first time I was like, oh, who is this Depeche Mode band was Ultra. No Good is the song that the very first song of theirs that I was like, I love this music. And it was from this record. And the rest of the record is honestly just as good as No Good. And go check out Depeche Mode's Ultra this week for your suggestion. Once again, this has been just a brief segment from the larger episode that has been posted over on the main channel, youtube.com/generallynerdy. Go over there for the long form content, or just subscribe here if you want it in bite-sized chunks. Thank you very much for joining me, nerds. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go though, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.